What was the biggest carnivorous dinosaur ever to walk the Earth? The answer seems simple, but for over 100 years it has changed again and again. And here's the fascinating part. Every change lined up with a movie, a documentary, or a new fossil discovery that reshaped paleontology. When Tyrannosaurus rex was officially described in 1905, it had virtually no competition. At over 12 meters long with a massive skull and the most powerful bite ever recorded in a land animal, it quickly became the undisputed king. For almost the entire 20th century, no one questioned that title. There were no complete fossils of other giant predators that could rival it. Then Hollywood arrived. Jurassic Park turned T-Rex into a global superstar. For years, to almost everyone, T-Rex was simply the biggest carnivorous dinosaur that had ever lived, and the ultimate predator as well. But science was about to rewrite the story. In 1993, the same year Jurassic Park premiered, a massive dinosaur was discovered in Patagonia. Its name was Giganotosaurus, and the first studies suggested something astonishing. It may have measured up to about 13 meters in length. That made it longer than most T-Rex specimens known at the time. Throughout the 1990s, headlines started rolling in. The king dethroned, bigger than Tyrannosaurus rex. However, there was a problem. Longer doesn't necessarily mean bigger. Giganotosaurus had a more slender build, a relatively lightweight skull, and a completely different body plan. Meanwhile, T-Rex was more compact and heavily muscled. And there was another wrinkle. The largest size estimates for Giganotosaurus didn't come from the original skeleton at all. They came from a single jawbone found years later, just 8% larger than the first one. Without a complete second skeleton, no one could say for certain how large Giganotosaurus truly became. The debate had only just begun. There was another contender even before Giganotosaurus, Carcharodontosaurus. It was originally discovered in Africa in the early 20th century. Unfortunately, the only known skull was destroyed in a World War II bombing raid. For decades, it all but vanished from the discussion. In fact, recent work suggests those original bones may not even have belonged to Carcharodontosaurus at all. Then, in the 1990s, new fossils discovered in Morocco helped redefine the animal from the ground up. The results surprised everyone. It was nearly as long as Giganotosaurus. It also had one of the longest skulls known among all carnivorous dinosaurs. For a few years, many researchers thought Carcharodontosaurus might even surpass the Argentine giant. But then a new rival appeared. A completely different one. In 1915, Ernst Stromer described a very unusual dinosaur discovered in Egypt. It had an enormous sail on its back. He named it Spinosaurus aegyptiacus. But once again, tragedy struck. The original fossils were destroyed during World War II. For nearly a century, no one really knew what it looked like. Then, in the mid-2000s, new discoveries in Morocco began to reveal a very different animal, much longer than anyone had imagined. Early estimates suggested 16, 17, or even 18 meters. And when Jurassic Park 3 hit theaters in 2001, the T-Rex lost a fight on screen for the first time, defeated by none other than Spinosaurus. For millions of people, that seemed to confirm what magazines and documentaries had already been suggesting. The new king had arrived, but was it really the biggest? Here's where things get complicated. Not every dinosaur can be compared in the same way. Tyrannosaurus was extremely heavy. It had a massive torso, incredibly muscular legs, and an enormous head. Spinosaurus was much longer, but a large part of that length came from its extremely elongated snout and tail. It was also a highly specialized animal, adapted to aquatic environments. It did not have the same terrestrial build. Giganotosaurus, on the other hand, was longer than many T-Rex specimens, but considerably leaner, and Carcharodontosaurus fell somewhere in between. So what does biggest actually mean? Longer, heavier, taller? Depending on the criteria, the answer changes completely. Over the last decade, new studies on T-Rex have suggested that some giant specimens may have exceeded 9 tons. There is even the famous specimen Scotty, considered one of the heaviest terrestrial predators ever discovered. Meanwhile, Spinosaurus has been reinterpreted again and again, often in even more dramatic ways. At first, it was thought to be an excellent swimmer. Then, some researchers proposed that it may have struggled to walk on land. Later, other studies questioned how much time it actually spent swimming. And the discovery of a new relative, hundreds of kilometers inland and far from any ancient coastline, pointed not to the open sea, but to shallow rivers and shorelines. So, do we have a clear winner? If we're talking about length, Spinosaurus is still probably the strongest contender, even if the earliest estimates have been revised downward. If we're talking about body mass, the largest known Tyrannosaurus rex specimens still seem to hold the top spot. Giganotosaurus and Carcharodontosaurus occupy an extraordinary middle ground. Longer than many T-Rex specimens, lighter than the biggest known individuals, yet still incredibly efficient predators. And here's the wonderful part, none of them was better. Each evolved to dominate a completely different ecosystem. One hunted giant hadrosaurs and ceratopsians, another pursued enormous sauropods, another lived along coastlines teeming with colossal fish. They weren't competing with one another. Each was the top predator of its own world, and even tomorrow, a brand new fossil could turn up and rewrite the story all over again. Maybe the biggest carnivorous dinosaur of all is still buried out there waiting to be found.